Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we're moving right along for my series on Hayao Miyazaki, talking about one of his biggest films, Princess Mononoke. And I'm joined by three of my pals from SiftPop and other places, but we all met at SiftPop. We got Luke. Luke, thank you so much for coming on.
Always a blast. Thank you for having me back.
We got Heath,
Hi.
and we got Aaron.
Howdy.
And we will be talking about, like I said, Princess Mononoke. But for those who haven't tuned in before, we have three segments. We always start with coming attractions, and it is July 18th. It's the only weekend without a super blockbuster movie coming out this July, which seems a little odd. They're just like, well, we didn't have a fourth one, so let's throw some other movies together and put it in here. Counter programming for everybody else who wants to go watch, doesn't want to watch Dinosaurs or Superman or the Fantastic Four. Then we'll be talking about our feature film and then leaving you with some recommendations. Let's get started with coming attractions. So the three wide releases coming out this weekend are Ari Aster's new film Eddington, which if you want some reminders about what the pandemic was like, you're in luck. And for 2.5 hours. And we also have a new legacy sequel horror film. I know what you did last summer because, I know what you did last summer exists because Scream made it cool to make slashers again. And they're like, look, Scream did a legacy sequel. Why don't we do one? And then we have Smurfs, which nobody asked for, but, Paramount has Smurfs now. And they're like, we're going to make one. So let's go around the horn. And there's other smaller releases and streaming and such. But let's get started with Luke. Which one are you most excited about coming out this weekend?
So not exactly excited, but I guess by default it would be Eddington by Ari Aster. And it's only because again, like him making Hereditary and Midsommar, great movies, but not the movies you would want to watch all the time. So I am always, I still haven't seen Boys Afraid. I am, bracing myself for that 3 hour ride. And based on everything I've heard about that movie. And yeah, so this is gonna be, I didn't even know this is about COVID. So like, I like to know as little as possible going into the movies. So yeah, sign me up.
Well, I basically told you about as broad a stroke of the plot as
Yeah.
possible without any kind of details.
Mhm.
But I guess Heath and Aaron, where's Eddington on your radar in terms of interest?
As rock
I'm
bottom as it gets. Um, I like Hereditary a lot, but I've not encountered a movie that interests me less than Beau is Afraid. And I didn't see it. So I'm saying that I have zero interest in seeing that 3 hour movie. So why am I interested in a 2.5 hour movie? And based off of the reviews for Beau is Afraid, I think I made an all right call. I will see this one because I will be forced by Robert to.
There you go. How about you, Heath?
I was not a fan of Beau is Afraid, but I am a fan of Ari Aster and his mind and the way it thinks. So I'm still interested in Eddington. Not really excited to relive the pandemic again, but I am excited for this twist on his perception of the pandemic and how it makes us. And I do like this cast, so I'm excited for it. Not like jumping out of my seat for it, but yeah, I want to see it.
This is definitely the one that I'm most excited for this weekend. And as of recording, I'll be seeing it in 2 days. And I'm a huge Ari Aster fan. I love all three of his films. And, I was in a packed house watching Beau is Afraid in a theater, and I was the only person laughing or chuckling or anything. And I'm like, I feel like I'm on a different frequency with this movie than the rest of this crowd. And I could just imagine Ari Aster sitting there off to the side, just laughing the whole entire time he was making this movie, knowing that people would be like, "What the f am I watching right now?" And I, it's interesting that this is going to be his first, not like I'm going to just say weird film, unless it is weird and it turns out to be weird, which I wouldn't be shocked that it does. But like
I've heard it's
this,
his most mainstream film to date.
which is interesting. And, let's make a mainstream film and make people feel that pandemic life again.
I
And
will say it's interesting that he's getting away from horror because that's where
mhm,
he broke out onto the scene, and
yeah.
that's where he's been acclaimed as his most successful between Midsommar and Hereditary. And then Beau is Afraid is this psychological drama and it thriller elements, but not horror. And it didn't get the best of reviews, but it didn't get terrible ones either. It was
Mhm,
kind of take it or leave it. And Eddington is also going down that route where this is a Western comedy and
mhm,
it's getting even worse reviews than Beau is Afraid. So it's very interesting that he's going away from horror where that's where he's succeeded.
yeah.
I don't know what that
Which
says, but it's interesting.
Hereditary is one of my favorite horror films, and also that is one of my most poignant theater going experiences where like I was scared shitless sitting there watching that movie, to be perfectly frank. And it is very weird that he's going this direction, but I he's an interesting enough filmmaker where anything he's going to make is at least interesting.
Yeah.
And even if it's like, I did not like this at all, but you know what? He went there and he
Mhm.
got Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone. I'm ready. We'll see where it goes. But Heath, which one are you most excited about?
I actually have a twofer.
Yep.
I'm most excited actually for Sherry and Lamb Chop, which
Yep.
is this documentary about the old Lamb Chop show, and that's strictly out of nostalgia because I watched that show as a kid. I was a kid born in the 80s, more raised in the 90s, and that show was on TV, and I watched it a lot. And just to be able to go back and kind of relive that nostalgia, hear some of those songs or see clips from that show again and learn more about it sounds genuinely fascinating to me, especially because it's a show that I would imagine most people don't know about these days. And it was kind of around for a few years. It hit my generation, and I doubt many people that were born in the late 90s, let alone in the 2000s or beyond, even know this existed. So that is interesting to me. But uh, to the mainstream audience, I'm also excited for I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm a simple man. I like my cheesy slashers. I like my humor, and I like my slashers to do their 90s scream thing, and that's what this is. This series is just a ripoff of Scream, and you know what? That's fine because I enjoy Scream. I like the first two movies. I think I Know What You Did Last Summer and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer are a lot of fun. And the third one is a joke and not worth considering whatsoever. But the first two are enjoyable and entertaining. And if they can capture even 50% of that energy, especially with some of these legacy characters coming back, I'm ready to have a turn my brain off and have a good time.
So first off on Cherry and Lamb Chop. So I did get to see the documentary when it was released festival wise last year, and it's a very charming film. And I did grow up watching Lamb Chop, so I'm like, oh my god, I'm excited to
Yeah,
check this out. So
I'm not alone. There's dozens of us.
there's dozens of us. Aaron, did you watch Lamb Chop?
No, I was about to say, as a 95 kid, can confirm, never heard of the show.
Yeah.
However, Lamb Chop is like one of the most popular dog toys out there right now.
There you go.
So every dog
Tear a lamb
loves a
chop
lamb
up.
chop. Hmm.
Luke, do you know what lamb chop is?
As the only international one here, no, I have no
No.
fucking clue what you guys are talking about.
I kind of figured. Lamb chop is a cute little hand puppet.
Okay.
Um, so,
It's a
but
sheep.
yep. And then we have Know What You Did Last Summer. So, first off, I would just want to make a comment that I love the naming convention of a series when they just go for it or just like, I still know
Yeah.
what you did last summer. And like, it's just like, you could have just did the cheap add a two on the end, but you know what? Let's go for it. It's stupid, but we love it.
That was
But
the one thing that the third one got right. It's called I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. The movie is terrible, but at least it kept the naming convention.
love that. Love to see it. But I actually have, you know what's crazy is I have not seen the original film.
Hmm.
So I don't have any connection with that. I didn't get into horror movies until much more recently. And that, like, it took me until I was well into adulthood to watch Scream for the first time. So I haven't seen the original, but I did watch that show where they remade it and turned it into a show. And I'm like, eh.
Well, did you
So
ever see, and this is actually probably where people are most familiar with it, ironically. Did you ever see Scary Movie?
Yep, yep.
Okay. The plot of Scary Movie is a
Li-
mishmash of Scream and I Know What You Did Last
yep.
Summer. So
yes.
it's actually really weird because I'm one of those people as well that I saw Scary Movie first. So then when I went back and watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm like, I get it now. This one, and oh my God, this one, and oh my God, this whole movie. They ripped off this whole movie in so many jokes and parts, and it's
Yep.
quite funny when you go back and watch it now. So if you've ever
And I
seen
also
Scary, you will get a kick out of going back to this one.
I do know the visual of the hook killer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when the trailer for this came out and this guy and the person in their coat and their galoshes and just hook, and I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm ready for
The
this.
fisherman hook. Yeah. I
Yes,
think he's called like the fisherman is his killer name where
nice.
like
Mhm,
Ghostface or
mhm.
the shape or something,
They totally didn't utilize that in SpongeBob in any way, shape, or form at all. But but I guess so. I'm not super excited about this because I have no real connection to it, but I will be watching it. And I'm actually kind of excited to see Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. in this movie, to be
I am.
honest.
Yeah. I hope they die. I hope they kill those characters. It'd just be so funny.
They gotta. But Luke and Aaron, where are you in terms of how I know what you did last summer?
I've
So
seen Scary Movie.
I'm in the same boat, I think, as Heath. I genuinely think I also seen this scary movie first, but I did definitely see the first two. I never seen the third. I'll always know what he did last summer. I didn't see that because
Don't see it. Save
I know
yourself.
it's like a straight to video, like or straight to DVD kind of. Like nobody from the original cast is there, correct?
Correct. No
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
It's not in the
That's
same
why.
town. It's like
Yes,
across the country. It
yes,
starts getting into like psychedelic powers. It's weird, dude. It
yeah.
is weird.
But I remember having like fun with both of those movies because they are like cheesy 90s
Yeah.
slashers. The only reason that stops me from being kind of excited about this one, I don't know how much these work nowadays. Like I have some enjoyment with some of the later Screams, but not all of them. And like so that this feels like, hey, like exactly what you said, Shane. Hey, Scream kind of worked. Let's try it with this 90s franchise, like a stabby franchise, and see if we can recapture it. So that's the only thing that stops me because it seems kind of yet again des oh, not desperate, but kind of desperate. So like, but I'm hoping if it's cheesy and fun, I'll be there.
My last comment about coming attractions before we move on to our feature is I want there to be a prequel just so that they can name one of these movies. I will know what you did next summer.
I will know
Just
what you
for
do.
I
Or
kn-
did
or I
do.
guess I
Yeah.
know what you did this summer would also work. Like if they just
Yeah.
expanded like what actually happened. But no, there's so many possibilities with
Here's
these.
what I did this summer.
I think so long as you go into it with the mindset of this is going to be a 3-star slasher, you're going to have a good time. Like don't expect Scream,
Yes.
but don't expect garbage either. Like it's just fun, simple slasher goodness. And you go into it with that frame of mind, I think you're going to have a good time.
Hopefully
And
they
that's what
keep
I'm
it
hoping
that way.
for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
But those are coming attractions. We just happen to not have Jurassic World, Superman, or Fantastic Four this week, which I feel like would have been a much bigger conversation about any of those. But we had some fun talking about these ones. Let's get started on our feature film, which is Princess Mononoke from director Hayao Miyazaki from 1997. And here's some background I have. So this made $212 million at the worldwide box office, which is roughly about 5 to 6 times the amount that Porco Rosso made, which was his last film. So this
Mm.
one blew up and really struck a nerve. And its early roots started all the way back in 1980 was when Miyazaki started having ideas for this. And you can kind of see that in some of his earlier films as I've been talking about them, that this fantasy world kind of building off of. This was originally considered adopting Najoki, which is from 1212, the year 1212. So this was originally going to be trying to adapt an early on fantasy fable in Japanese culture. Computer and digital techniques were leveraged with the hand drawn animation for the first time in a Miyazaki film, which a lot of people are kind of shocked that he used any kind of digital work since he seems very particular about how he does his work. This influence, this was influenced by the Jidaigeki style in terms of animation and storytelling. Neil Gaiman actually wrote the English translation for the dub for this film, which is very interesting. Won top awards at the Mainichi Film Awards and Japan Academy Film Prize. This was originally influenced by Beauty and the Beast, was where they were really going with like the early aspects where the princess was going to be like the main character and connecting with this beast in the woods and stuff like that. Shuna's journey bears close resemblance to this film, another property that Hayao Miyazaki was involved in. This was the most expensive animated film in Japanese history at the time of its release, which I'm not shocked because this is like a 2 hour and 12-minute movie, which is wild for most animated films to even come close to the 2 hour mark, let alone surpass it. They utilized 5 art directors on this. So this was such a big project that they had so much involved. And there's about 5 minutes of digitally created footage in the film out of the whole runtime. But that's some of the background. I'm just going to throw out here before we go around talking about what our experiences was. This your first time watching, or if you've experienced this film before, and then general thoughts. But I was a kid and I was hanging out at my neighbor's house, and their dad was watching this movie. And I walk in and see this giant, like infested boar creature running around. And as a child, I was terrified. And this like burned into my brain for my whole childhood. For me as an adult to finally watch Princess Mononoke and be like, oh my God, it was that movie. I stopped watching before limbs started flying, honestly, because for the record, this is not a movie for families to watch.
No.
Nope.
Out of all of Miyazaki's filmography, there's blood, there's limbs, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and this is a pretty dark movie compared to a lot of his films. But that's just my little anecdote that I wanted to share. So yes, this movie's been burned in my brain, at least a piece of it, since I was a child. But let's go around the horn here. We'll start with you, Luke. What's your experience with the film, and what were your general thoughts?
So my experience, so first time I've seen it was like 12, 13 years ago. It was my second Ghibli movie at the time. And this was my first Ghibli movie I actually liked. And that kind of convinced me, hey, the Ghibli movies are might be my thing. And and I knew like I need to rewatch it, I need to rewatch it. And now I've rewatched it today and loved it. Like I forgot about the flying limbs. I forgot how mature it is. Like, about not just the flying limbs, but several times there is mentioning, oh yeah, we used to work in a brothel. It's, not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. And I really enjoyed like the obvious themes. I think it's the most straightforward Ghibli movie, but in it, it's still quite complex, where it's not like nature good, humans bad, and here we fight. It's much more complex than that. I really, really enjoyed my time, and it flew by. Like the 12 hour, like 14 minutes or so, it kind of flew by. So really enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I watched it with subtitles. I didn't watch the dub version.
That is the other
Yeah,
question to throw in there. Did you watch subbed or dubbed? Which is a
subs.
consistent question on all of these Miyazaki episodes, since that is also a pretty significant point of contention for a lot of people when it comes to anime.
Mhm.
But Heath, same questions.
Yeah, this was the first Studio Ghibli film I ever saw. I think I saw it first roughly 20 years ago, maybe slightly more. I was in high school when I saw this, which dates me inadvertently. And I remember immediately falling in love with it. I saw it in subs. And every subsequent time I've seen it subbed, except for this time when I rewatched it for this episode. I thought I'd do the dub just to do the other one since I'd seen the subtitled version probably 3, 4 times before. So I was like, oh, I'll try the dub and hear the American English dubbed version of it, and it was fine. It's good. I still prefer the subtitled. I think that's natural. But yeah, uh, seen this many times before over the past 20 years, and I really love it. It still remains one of my top favorite Studio Ghibli films ever.
Awesome. And Aaron.
It's my first time watching this movie. When Shane asked me if I want to come be on these things, I say, great, yeah, let's pick a movie that I haven't seen though, so it gives me an excuse to watch one. And this is one that I have a close friend that has wanted me to watch for a while, because I don't like Studio Ghibli films. They aren't for me. I've seen a few of them, and look, I'll just get everybody off my side in like 3 consecutive sentences here. Spirited Away is like the most overrated movie of all time. It's fine. It's aggressively fine. Um, so hate me now. Cool.
You
Disregard
didn't have to
everything
be
I say.
aggressive about it.
Um, Grave of the Fireflies is the only one that I genuinely love. But it's also like it's so straightforward. It doesn't have any like magic or mysticism to it,
Masochist.
which is really just what winds up being the thing that detracts me from these movies. I've seen Howl's Moving Castle a few times and Castle in the Sky, and I like both of those. They're just never going to be movies that I reach for over other movies. So that's my like um, Ghibli film. I watched the dubbed because it was what HBO Max had at its default. But also for anime, I tend to lead dub for the simple reason that there is so much incredible artwork going on that I don't want to miss it for text. It's probably like I'm sure it's a better experience watching it with the original voices, but the lips already don't match in the first place, so I don't know that it really matters subs or dubs when you do an anime. Um, so I do dubs the first time. If I were to rewatch it, I would potentially do subs because I don't need to know what's going on in its entirety. I can pick up on context clues or things if I miss words or whatnot. But for a first watch, I typically do dubs for anime. Um, so yeah, and just I haven't seen it, and now I have.
There you go. How to follow that.
Yeah, yeah,
Which actually,
yeah.
this is funny because this isn't the first time I've actually talked to Aaron on a podcast or know about Miyazaki film because I know we did Totoro on
And
the
Totoro
SiftPop
was
Writers Room,
fine. It was okay.
which it was very interesting being on there with Robert with you, and we had a very spirited conversation. You should all go check it out because we love shameless plugs here. But so obviously, I told you all what my initial experience was with this. I've watched this probably 4 times since then as an adult when I finally watched this in its entirety for the first time. And I've watched a mix of subbed and dubbed over that time. I'm actually disappointed that I didn't make it to theaters for its IMAX re-release that it had this year because God, it would have looked amazing. And that would have been really cool. Um, I have dabbled in Ghibli Fest because these consistently come back into theaters, at least in the United States. So I've seen quite a few of these in theaters. I've actually seen Totoro twice on 2 separate occasions in
Nice.
theaters. But this one, going into my Miyazaki series, I've literally watched all of these before. So I think this is the first filmmaker since the Coens that I had seen every single one of their works before going into the series. Even with Wes Anderson, I didn't see some of his earlier shorts and stuff like that. And also Phoenician Scheme was brand new. So that was going to be a new discussion anyway. But so going in, this was my favorite Miyazaki film before I started the series, and it still is. This is one of my top 100 favorite movies, and it really digs into one, I love fantasy, and it's really hard to make fantasy make like really work in live action. I feel like compared to animation because how much heavy lifting you have to do in terms of world building. But Miyazaki's world building and animation in his films are second to none in terms of like technical prowess. And this world is gorgeous. The creatures, that forest spirit is one of the most disturbing looking things I think I've ever seen in my life. And it's just like it's subtly disturbing. I'm like, why is there a human face on this? I don't
Mm.
like this. But I think Luke slightly hinged on this is like because sure, like many of Miyazaki films, it is nature versus humans
Mm.
and that conflict. But on each side of things in this film, there's groups of people, there's groups of nature, of animals and creatures that have differing perspectives, and there is conflict throughout this film. And I do enjoy the voice cast they got for this. Still a little weirded by Billy Bob Thornton voicing a Japanese character in a fantasy
Yeah,
movie.
listening to the dub this time, Billy Bob definitely caught me off guard.
I'm just like, why is Billy Bob Thornton here?
It was not a choice I would have made.
It's also a choice I would not make either, but I have to say Keith David as Okoto, that's some A+ decision making there. In terms of voice casting, him and his giant boar, yes. But in general, I this film is so gorgeous, and I am a self-professed action movie snob. So like I love action movies and I have very high standards. And I don't think animation gets enough credit for when it does action really well. And this is a thrilling movie with a lot of really interesting action sequences, even just starting in that opening space with the boar, that cursed boar, and all of that, and just like how the infection is animated over it's so disturbing and grotesque. And I appreciate the more mature twist on this. I remember rewatching this most recently was for my animation movie marathon last year with all my friends. And when Ashitaka starts shooting with his cursed arm and literally knocking people's limbs off and heads, I'm like, I don't remember that
Same.
very well. And just kind of setting that tone. So, but I guess in general, let's start with some positive. What are some of the things that really stood out to all of you about the film?
Okay, I'll go. I again like was blown away how straightforward it is, but not only just the themes and the messages, but also even the characters. Like even the movie jumps into the action. Like most Ghibli movies, they just go get in. There's no need for like we introduce everything as we go along. There's already like an action sequence happening within first 5 minutes, not even. And then, our main hero gets his arm obviously like infected. And again, straightforward characters. Yeah, this is serious. You will die. And it was like just that deadpan delivery. And then like next quite a few sentences later, and as you know, we cannot watch you die, so you need to leave. And I'm like, I don't remember that. But I
They're just like,
really find
get out of here.
Yeah, but or the same with the wife, right? Like how our main character then rescues those two soldiers that fall off the cliff, and the queen or the leader, she's like, they are dead anyway. We need to save the living. And again, another like straightforward, like, yeah, just yeah, they are dead, and he saves them. And one of the wives is like, oh, that's my husband. I'm so happy he's alive. Look at you. You're so banged up. How are you gonna work now? Why did I even marry you? But I'm glad you, well, alive. To be fair, and I'm like. And this kind of straightforwardness in a fantasy setting, I think that's what it makes it feel like this could actually happen. This made it for me at least like much realer than if everybody was just talking like this like almost like flowery language, kind of like Lord of the Rings like. This kind of feels like, oh yeah, these are actual real people, except there's like forest ghosts. There is some, talking bears. There is like spirits. There is some gods. But yeah, like so I appreciated that.
I think the Japanese culture of it goes a long way with that too, because I think just generally, I'm a huge fan of Japanese cinema. If I had to pick any country's films that I love most outside of, growing up in the United States, it's definitely Japan. There's a
Hmm.
lot of very strange, very directness about things, and that certainly made for some fun interactions, especially like I do love that wife husband interaction
Yeah.
part, which is just it's just like, what are you supposed to do now? Why'd you do this? It's like,
Hmm.
I didn't plan on getting maimed here. But how about you, Heath?
For me, I really just get into the thematic work of this one.
Hmm.
That's when Ghibli really sings to me. I roll my eyes at Aaron earlier about the Spirited Away comment because that's just asinine. But I do see where he's coming from with Ghibli as a whole. Because I'm actually kind of in the same boat. There are some Ghibli things that I think are undeniable masterpieces that are some of the greatest films that are ever made. I would put Ghibli in there. I would put Grave of the Fireflies in there, that Aaron mentioned. I would put this in there, Princess Mononoke. Um, Ponyo is probably right there for me. Maybe something close is also Howl's Moving Castle, Totoro, stuff like that. But then there's also other stuff like Porco Rosso, which are fine. They're just not for me. And then there's like just objectively bad things like Earwig, um,
Ugh.
that are just
Oh,
terrible. And
or anything Goro
yeah,
Miyazaki made.
so so I'm not like one of those people that's like a Studio Ghibli diehard who's thinks they're infallible. They are fallible. They make average movies from time to time. They make bad movies from time to time. But there are great films here as well, and I think they're at their peak as a studio as when they elevate concepts and they work in themes. And this one is so very defined to me. And this is what resonated to me so well when I first saw it 20 years ago and still hits every time. And of course, you could simplify it as just kind of Luke, as you were joking earlier, man bad, nature good. We shouldn't do this. This
Yeah.
bad thing happened, kill people bad, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's beyond that
Yeah.
because, something that really stuck out to me this time is Irontown is okay, they're the bad guys. They're deforesting, they're destroying nature, they're actively trying to hunt nature, and it gives you this perception that man is bad. But at the same time, and I forget the name of the character, the woman who leads Irontown, what's her name?
Kiboshi.
There you
Hmm.
go.
Yep.
She's still like, no, I'm going to save and bandage the lepers and find them opportunities. I'm going to take these sex workers out of these cities where they would be abused, raped, taken advantage of. And you know what? Yeah, I kind of work them long hours here, but they're human beings here and they're treated as such and they're not uh maligned and mistreated and taken advantage of. And it's those little intricacies that make this film so interesting to me of it's not a clear-cut black and white of man bad, nature good, because we even see elements of man being good or even of nature being bad
Hmm.
when the gorillas are like, oh, are the apes, I think they technically call them apes. I don't remember, but they're like, oh, we should just, kill them. We should just eat this person and we'll absorb it. And Princess Mononoke is like, no, you're not going to eat him. Stop. Like, and showing the fallibility of both sides of the argument in that there is a symbiosis there, and it's the challenge is finding that symbiosis, the idea between industrialization and progress versus conservative progress, and just so many different things that make this movie truly sing for me. So that's what I lock into when I watch this movie. Even beyond, like you said, the amazing animation or the incredible action, seeing someone getting their arm or their head taken off by a bow and arrow, it's sick, it's dope.
Hmm.
But watching that exemplify the existing themes is what makes this film so powerful to me. And that's what I lock into when I watch this film.
Yeah, I think there's a clarity to the themes where it's very obvious what this film is trying to talk about and trying to
Yep.
explore. But I do appreciate the layers of those apes are dicks,
Mhm.
to be frank. And it's just like they're introducing you're just like they don't want to have any of this. And they're in immediate conflict. And even San, who has to go through her own experience of overcoming her anti-human, you know, biases, despite the fact that she has one. But she's a wolf. Don't tell her. And like those kinds of experiences and the people, because Irontown could have easily been this one-dimensional evil entity, but I love how Boshi sets this tone with the sex workers being repurposed and finding some real meaningful work, and the lepers and all these layers of like there are good things that are happening through this human progress here. But sometimes it's this push and pull. And then
Mhm.
you do have Vigo, who Billy Bob Thornton voices in the dub version of, who is really the human antagonist of this because he's just at all costs trying to steal the head of um the spirit. And you have this whole entire thing where I love the visualization of the conflict too, because as nature is corrupted, there is a very visceral way that these things are animated and represented in this film, and grotesque. Like one of my favorite moments in this film that is so harrowing to me is specifically with Koto slowly, like he's dying, but then he hears his boars, but they're not. And
Mhm.
that's so messed up when all the humans have all their skins on and are trying to trick him, and he's half dead, barreling through the forest, but then he starts to be corrupted. And that scene got me every time. And the especially like the voice acting that Keith David does in that moment just really exemplifies that. And there's just so much emotion there, but you're seeing the corruption of nature in real time. And then the moment the spirit loses its head and this behemoth and like the dark meltingness of it all coming out and how it shifts in this different kind of more malignant space, those things are really important and special details that just kind of elevates the experience. But I
Yeah, and
guess, oh, go ahead,
oh,
Luke.
I was just gonna add to Heath's point. What's the name of the little dude who's actually the antagonist? What's his name
Uh,
again?
Billy Bob.
Jigo, Billy Bob.
Billy Bob. I what I liked about that, well, liked what I really found fascinating about this character specifically, right? He brags about, oh yeah, but I have the Emperor's note that makes it okay for me to kill the god, right? So he's like pursuing this, this that's his ultimate goal. And when he ultimately fails, spoiler, and the god like kind of resurrects, he just like, oh well, I've tried. And so for him, there's not actual any stake in the game, which makes him even more evil because he genuinely believes, oh, I can do that, and it doesn't matter what happens with that because I have this list that empowers me by Emperor of Japan. So it's all good. But the moment he fails, he's not even devastated about it. He's just like, oh well, on to the next one. I've tried. And I think that's the like another layer of that, like in another dumber movie he would be like like mad that he failed. Oh, I'll get you next time, your god. And he's like, no, I've tried. Hey, and on to my next task. I'll probably eliminate this village or whatever.
Luke, are you saying that people do evil things and corrupt things, and then when it doesn't work out for them, they just take no consequences for their actions and
And
then
they just move
try to
on.
like
Yeah.
divert people's attention away from it?
No, I would never.
And then run for president.
Would
And they get
never.
elected.
Jigo is the next emperor of Japan after this movie. But Aaron, I know you're obviously the most negative about this, but what were some things that stood out to you that you appreciated about the film at least?
Look, I'll say this. I didn't say how I felt about this film in particular earlier. I
Yep.
wasn't sure if that was supposed to be in this. I really liked this film.
Mm.
Nice.
I would put it as my second favorite Ghibli film, still behind Grave of the Fireflies, but like a considerable distance up from um, some of the things that I've seen. So, um, look, I think the animation is gorgeous. That's always a given with at least all the ones that I've seen. It's a given
Don't watch
with
Earwig.
Studio Ghibli films.
It's an abomination.
I and look, I am just in general, like first of all, echo a lot of what you guys have said so far, but I have not every movie needs to say something. Sometimes, Fast and Furious can just be cargo fast, and that's great.
Aaron,
Um,
those movies are about family.
oh, right, sorry. Sometimes Fast and Furious can just be family, my bad. Like sometimes like the movies don't have to mean like movies don't necessarily have to mean anything anymore. But I also am of the mindset that when they do want to say things, I don't need it to be hidden coded. Sometimes, like I appreciate when a movie just wears its beliefs on its sleeve, wears its heart on its sleeve, and is just unapologetically like you guys are saying, like you don't have to look far to see like what this movie is trying to say, what Miyazaki is trying to portray here, what he's trying to say. And so um, I just I appreciate that. Like I know sometimes people thinks that movies maybe get dumber for that. Um, I don't ever um, feel that way. I really liked this movie. I appreciated its simplicity yet also its complexity. Like this movie could have very easily gotten lost in, because you got your main village at the beginning and the people who are on screen for like 5 minutes, and and there's the whole like big goodbye with the sister, which frankly like kind of like doesn't really like I was expecting this third act the sister comes in and saves the day or whatever, but that's like not the movie that this is. It could have easily become really complex. It could have really easily become, you got Irontown and the forest creatures and the prostitutes that have this the former prostitutes who have this rich background. Like this world is so lived in and we're kind of dropped in the middle of it, and I never feel like I'm overwhelmed, which is an insane feat for this film to do. So um I don't have much negative to say about this movie actually. So my negativity is more just like in general towards like
Fair.
because I think Studio Ghibli is good, not great, that puts me in hater tier, right?
Haters gonna hate. Um, but not to like beat a dead horse here, but like realistically, if you are trying to dig through all of Studio Ghibli's filmography, the weakest ones are generally from Goro Miyazaki, who's Hayao Miyazaki's son.
Mm.
Nepotism.
Especially
Fun.
Earwig, which I'll say again is disgusting and
It's
don't watch it.
terrible. It's awful.
So bad. It was their first attempt at like a full 3D animated movie, and it looks grotesque, and I hate it.
Mm. Mm.
It's
I
like the
have just
Rugrats
decided
3D
to
animated, level
I
of grotesque.
probably just am not planning on watching anymore unless something like this comes up. Because but I did have a friend who's a big Studio Ghibli fan, and he said you need to watch Princess Mononoke, and I'm glad I did because
There
I've
you go.
quite enjoyed this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I
like I'm not gonna I'm gonna reach for How to Train Your Dragon before any Studio Ghibli film,
which I'm not gonna argue with that because How to
yeah,
Train Your Dragon's
or
great.
like plenty of like Disney animated films. Not Moana 2, but like, you know, Big Hero
Moana 1.
6 or
We're taking
um
some shots today.
yeah.
Very specific movies.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm not gonna say like there's other animated films that I do love more than this. I'm like, I'll watch Shrek 2 every day. I
Yes,
don't
every
care.
day.
Every day. You know, that's me. And if I can
Shrek
get
2 is
Shrek,
the best Studio Ghibli film.
if I can get Shrek 2 on the best ever challenge on SiftPop every single week, I will. Just you wait, it's a challenge. Um, but to one of your points, Aaron, one of the reasons why fantasy is so hard is to be able to drop an audience into a world and make them believe that this is all like actually lived in and everything. And this doesn't give you like an obnoxious exposition dump at the beginning where it's just like this and this and that and this or the other thing. And it does drop you in and it does feel so fleshed out and lived in. And I think that's one of the best things you can say about a fantasy film is that it feels lived in. These feel like real characters in a real world to be able to work. And despite the fact that it's animated and there's giant forest creatures and stuff like that. Which do they exist? I don't know. Could the forest spirit be a cryptid? I'm not saying yes or no. But
Obviously they do in Japan. Like, duh.
Duh.
you know what? I've never been to Japan, so I
Me
cannot
neither.
confirm or deny that there's
Exactly.
spirit creatures there. So there you go. I'm not one to dismiss things automatically. Ghosts? I don't know. See, now we're spiraling.
Especially the cute ghosts, like the cute tiny ones that just like, turn their head and have like a tiny butt and just like, non-threatening. I'm like, oh, those are cute guys. They look like, like
The
I would chill with those guys.
the shot of the millions of those guys just like shaking their head back and forth, I
Yeah.
thought must have took years, like just for that, like the attention to detail in like I was just like people are hand drawing, like that's insane. I love animation, but and I can't draw worth crap, but like I was that's dedication. I thoroughly impressed by that.
Mhm.
Now, I guess, does anybody have anything else specifically about this film that really stood out that they want to throw out? I know, real quick, and this could be more than a real quick conversation, but it's like just the music in like every single Miyazaki film is incredible. And
Mhm.
Joe Hisashi, who did the score for this, just it really exemplifies him as a composer really understands what's the genre I'm working in, what's the space that I'm working in, and what's the world like, and it just matches it perfectly. So I was actually just listening to some of the score
Mhm.
when I was doing some reading yesterday, but just I know that was one thing I wanted to throw out there. Was there anything else that we haven't touched upon that you all wanted to speak about?
I would echo your action love for this movie because, like, again, like the themes, great, characters, awesome, like, complexity, even better. But, and then we get to the action bit, and I still remember the first time, like, especially the last half an hour, I was blown away. I'm like, wow, this is some cool action. Like, I already was kind of digging it, and then that last half an hour, that big battles with like boars and the wolves and all the spirit and like the god, and I'm like, wow, it felt epic. And even on this rewatch, it's just this movie feels epic. Like it almost I would say something like dumb, but like it almost has no right to be that epic, but it is. It's just so great. And yeah, so I was just gonna echo that, like that action, and it's probably just like the fourth or fifth best thing about this movie, and that speaks volume.
Heath, did you want to add something?
Again, just reiterating, yeah, I think the reason why this is so successful is because it does everything well. Again, for me, it strikes the themes. For you, it really hits the action. Luke was talking about the animation, but what's special is that it does all these things so well. It never
Hmm.
hyper focuses and like cuts itself out at the knees in service of one other. Oh, we're gonna sacrifice on story so that we can really drive home animation. We're gonna sacrifice on score so that we can really develop these action sequences. It delivers on all of that. Even the voice performances. Now having seen both the original Japanese cut many times and now the English cut, um, I even the voice acting is strong and
Mm.
powerful, and you can tell there's commitment that brings these characters to life. Um, and that's what makes this movie so special is it's all encompassing in its beauty,
Hmm.
in its
Hmm.
art.
Absolutely. Anything else?
If Aaron doesn't have anything else, I was just gonna mention the ending. I appreciated, like I think we can talk freely about the ending,
Yes.
where I really appreciated where again they go against the expected, where those two, we have a boy and we have a girl. Both are human, even though she kind of identifies as a wolf. And they don't end up together. They're like, yeah, we'll never work, but hey, we can be friends and we can visit, right? And we'll visit each other. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Hayao Miyazaki and him writing strong female characters. Like even the sex workers we mentioned earlier, like there are a couple of lines where it's like you can tell not only they live their life and sure they work 4-day shifts, which sounds grueling. I wouldn't want to do what they do for 4 days straight, but hey, but you can tell like they feel empowered. They like there's a line that's like we can eat as much as we want and like nobody bothers us about that. And I'm like, this is such a like if you ever spoke to a woman, that's such a line that a woman would say like in actual like and you can go through all the Ghibli movies and except for like maybe two, like I haven't seen them all like you, Shane, so you need to back me up. But I think there's only maybe like two movies where the main heroine is not a woman. I can think of Boy and a Heron that, but you can technically argue the Heron, his mom, is one also like the main character in that movie.
He has a little bit
Uh,
of a raspy voice, though.
mhm. But yeah, like most of like Hayao Miyazaki movies, the main hero is a woman, and it's she has her own agenda, her own task, her own her own dreams, aspirations, all that, and they are always fully fledged characters. And this like the Princess Mononoke, like she is there, like she is this warrior, but she also has the softer side to her. Like she's not this like she is fearless warrior, but also like she gets saved a couple of times by our main protagonist because they complement each other. But despite them complementing each other, they still are different enough where like, yeah, we wouldn't work as a couple, but we don't have to. So we shake hands, we'll be friends, and we'll visit. So I really appreciated the ending where yet again, as we've talked about, like does everything as he mentioned, does everything well across the board. Another point to that, like, oh yeah, that's a great like ending. I would honestly be kind of bummed had they like just yeah, let's give it a go. Let's kiss and we're a couple now.
Well, and it didn't need to be and chose not to be that kind of movie. And I'm
Hmm.
glad that it stuck to its guns in that kind of
Correct.
way. And it's interesting because Ashitaka is not exactly the most dynamic personality wise of a
Hmm.
protagonist, but he works really well in the context of this story of being lost in this world and being us taking this all in.
Hmm.
And you know, I one last scene that I want to bring up that I really appreciate is when he does protect her in Irontown
Hmm.
and he picks her up and he's gonna take her out and they straight up shoot him.
Yep.
And he's just like, he's not a good spot. But then it's just like one person can't lift this gate and he goes cursed arm like step off and just lifts the whole entire gate by himself. And like
Hold my
that's a
gate.
really it's a great moment and I love all the tension of that scene. It's the human dynamics and connections and well, let me rephrase it. It's the connections in this movie that really work because it doesn't matter if they're between humans and creatures or spirits or anything. I just love all the connections that get
Hmm.
built throughout this film, whether they're in conflict or some gray. Because like for Boshi, there's some gray there. And I think it's more interesting that way. But I just feel like this is a really special film. And obviously, like I mentioned at the top of this is not a movie to watch with your kids as like a big family. But if you are an adult and you want to explore into fantasy and want to see some great fantasy at work, this is great fantasy at work. And to Heath's point, one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings is my favorite film collectively of all time is that it literally does everything great. And this is another film that is able to accomplish that. And very few fantasy films, especially like live action ones, are able to do stuff like that. And this is a really impressive feat for sure. And still, this is my number one out of my Ghibli films that I've watched so far through this series. We'll see if that changes. But my next episode will be Spirited Away, which is like the big one, which won the Oscar. Literally only the second animate best animated feature Oscar, after Shrek. And but as we wrap this up, want to leave you all with some other recommendations. So let's go around the horn here and give some recommendations. But Luke, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
So I would like to recommend a movie by Danny Boyle, his first feature debut, and it's Shallow Grave. It's a simple story about three flat friends, aka flatmates, because they share a flat in Scotland, and how in their search for one other flatmate, brings them into a lot of money and shit lot of troubles because he dies, and they need to decide what's gonna happen with the body, a body, and what's gonna happen with the money, and the movie takes some turns I didn't expect, and it's energetic as only Danny Boyle knows how to make these kind of energetic movies, and definitely has a great ending. I was like, oh, you bastard, like it. So yeah, very strong recommend.
Yeah, that really sticks to landing. Luke and I talked about this on the Wasteland retrospective over on the SPDM crew because we love shameless plugs here. So you could go check out our discussion about that.
Mhm.
But just seeing like a young Ewan McGregor, because like this is pre-train spotting Ewan
Yes.
McGregor and Chris Eccleston, like years before he was Doctor Who, which I feel like is
Mhm.
probably the biggest thing where most people really not focused. And it made me wonder why
Hero
Carrie.
season 1.
Thor: The Dark World, obviously.
Excuse me, Aaron. I know who Malekith the Dark Elf is. I don't know if everybody watching can remember his name.
I
Uh,
would not have gotten that right.
I have a strange encyclopedic knowledge of the MCU. And for some reason, I remember all these names of characters that nobody gave a crap about. He also was in G.I. Joe Rise of
Yeah, he
Cobra.
was.
So I've never actually watched Hero, so I didn't know him from that show. But I just know that obviously he's a Doctor Who, so a lot of people know Chris
Yeah.
Eccleston from that. And Carrie Fox, why hasn't she had a bigger career? Because she was great in that.
Yes.
Heath, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
So I've had a hankering, a midlife crisis, nostalgic urge to go back and reread some of my favorite comic books. And I decided to go back and read Fables, which is my favorite comic of all time, or at least the first 75 issues are. Have you guys ever heard of Fables?
Nope.
Yes. I don't know a lot of detail about it, but I have heard about it.
Have you heard of a show called Once Upon a Time? It was on ABC for a minute.
Hmm.
See, I knew this got adapted into a show, and I didn't remember which one it
Ah,
was,
but it didn't. But it did, and that's what pisses me off. So mini rant time.
uh,
Fables was written as part of the Vertigo imprint, which has now since been relabeled DC Black Label. It's DC's adult comics that they can't put under their main label. And tell me if this pitch sounds familiar. Uh, what if fairy tale creatures were real? And what if they lived in the real world and they had their own home world, but they were kicked out by an evil adversary? So they live in our world and they're secretly living amongst us. And they all are interconnected and interwoven. And it's all about their strife and their fights and trying to get back to their home world. Does that sound like ABC's Once Upon a Time?
That's the
Hey, because
Transformers
it
movies.
does.
That's the Michael Bay Transformers movies.
So essentially, ABC, yeah, right. ABC bought the rights to adapt Fables, and then they're like, "This is too adult for us. We don't want to do this because the comics have violence and sex and all that stuff." And so they scrapped it, and then miraculously, a year later, comes a show called Once Upon a Time, and it just kind of cuts out a lot of the violence and the sex, and it's just like, oh, okay, so cool, you just stole it. But anyway, so this is Fables. They came out with a compendium of
oh,
all of
nice.
the stories. I've been rereading them one at a time. They're fantastic. Again, at least the first 75 issues, that's the full adversary storyline. You kind of get the sense after those first 75 that he was like, "Oh, I didn't expect people to like my book this much and they want me to keep writing. Well, I kind of exhausted all my ideas. I'll just start coming up with new villains and doing other things." And it's not that they're bad, but you're talking like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 comic that kind of falls to like a 6 out of 10, just like average to slightly above average. So if you ever want to try Fables, highly recommend it. Read the first 75 issues. They're also available in trade paperback and much easier to find that way. So
And a
Good stuff.
special anti-thanks to Disney and ABC
Yeah.
for being a dick.
Screw them, because now I'll probably never get a Fables TV show. Awesome.
Send it to HBO, where they could put all the sex and violence.
I would love that. Trust me, I want to see Goldilocks shoot Snow White in the head with a sniper rifle. I'm all about it. Let's do it.
Ooh,
Yes.
that is provocative.
Whoever's making those like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey movies is all over this.
No, please, please not them. Like I want quality behind it.
We want HBO for them to release this on the newly rechristened HBO Max.
Mhm.
Oh God.
Mhm.
So
It has
there you
risen.
go. It has risen
Hallelujah.
again. Hallelujah. Aaron, what is your recommendation?
I'm gonna swap it up on you from what I said earlier, because there's two movies that I saw last month that have stuck with me. I want to talk about the other one because I just think that Life of Chuck is pure magic. Um, and like I said earlier, I just don't mind when movies have a simple message and wear the heart out its sleeve. So I don't mind that the movie is Hallmarky. I'm very happy that Coda got as much love and attention as it did. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it shouldn't have, because the Academy is a joke now, whatever. And it's always been a joke, right? Like, because whatever. Anyway, it's just delightful and charming, and I really like the way that the story is structured, and I like like some of the little hidden details that Flanagan throws in there, or like from what I understand are different than the book because there's certain things you can't portray in a book that you can on film, such as characters who appear in Act One, which is technically chronologically Act Three, um, or it's Act Three, but it's I don't know, it's chronologically the same time. Whatever. Anyway, um, but you see those characters earlier on in the story. There's like a scene with a drummer and dancing that is just like the most magical thing I've seen in years. It's just incredible. And it's yeah, it's schmaltzy at times. It's sometimes a little bit too Hallmarky movie-y. But I just don't care that much. I had a blast and it was life-giving and life-affirming and just tender. And that's not really what I expected from, the director of Haunting a Hill House and Doctor Sleep and some other things, but I just Flanagan's one of my favorite working right now, and Life of Chuck was just so unlike anything that he's done that I'd seen recently. It almost makes me just more excited for whatever he's got next, regardless on whether it's going to be um a drama, a comedy, a horror project, just whatever. Anyway, I think he's working on Clayface next, which is awesome. Unless he dropped
Yes,
out of
he
that.
is writing. I'm pretty sure he's still writing the script. He's not going to direct it.
Right, he's writing and not
And
directing.
then,
That's already filming.
yeah, DC Studios is just like
Oh, they're going
moving
now.
along
Yeah.
here.
Supergirl's
yeah.
already wrapped. That's Clayface is filming. Lanterns comes out. It's already wrapped filming. It's coming out next spring. They're in full mode now that Superman's released.
Great.
Moving along. Real quick thought about the Academy Awards first, which I know there's one person on this show that spends a lot of time thinking and talking and writing about the
Writing.
Academy Awards, and his name is Heath.
That is me. Yes.
Yeah. Luke, Adam, and I host a podcast, Cinematic Wasteland, and we're just going through every year of cinema. And we finally reached when, the Academy Awards were a thing. And, it was interesting from the start. We're
Yeah.
just like, these are some films that I've never heard of and have died long ago in the minds of many, many people. And
Well,
it's
some
just
of
like,
the films have literally just died themselves. Some of them you can't even find. They don't
literally,
exist anymore.
yes, from that first Academy Awards, like there's literal dead film and lost
Mhm.
films there, and it's just like, well, we'll never be able to watch this one.
There are multiple films that were nominated for Best Picture that you can't find them anywhere. The Patriot is one that no print of that exists. There's two other films there's only one print of in the world, and they're at UCLA, and you have to go and watch them in person, and you have to like reserve a time to go see them in person if you want to go see them. So,
Challenge
yeah,
accepted.
Mhm.
yeah, right.
That'll be on my bucket list along with me going to Japan to the Studio Ghibli Museum so I can watch all of Miyazaki's shorts that only play at the Ghibli Museum because they're not commercialized, and I will come back and do episodes of the show for them. Um, just putting it out there. But getting back to Life of Chuck, I love that film. It's one of my favorite films of the year. It struck a chord with me after sitting in almost 2 hours of traffic trying to get to my damn press screening in right near Temple in Philly to go see that movie. And there was 4 critics in the whole theater who showed up for that screening. And it hit something special for me. And I actually read the novella a couple weeks ago after seeing the film, and it's a really faithful adaptation. And then adding some stuff, like you pointed out, Aaron, but like that scene with Chuck dancing just comes to life on screen in a way that like it can't in a book. Like that scene was absolutely magic. So I'll do my usual recommendations, which is just a new film, one off my watch list, and a rewatch of one of my films that I own here with my large collection, as you all see behind me. Um, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off and just say I recommend Superman, which is it's a weird feeling being one of the people in our SiftPop group that actually rated this kind of low compared to everybody else. Because like I saw well, I'm not saying this is a brag. I literally saw this before anybody else in our group because I had a press screening for it. And I left this movie like, I really enjoyed this. I hope other people do too. Like I have my problems with it. They but it is so wonderful and so much joy and hope. And it opens up a world that like I want to explore more. So I'm excited to see all these other projects. But David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan, the second they announced her, I'm like, this is the most perfect Lois Lane casting to possibly could have found. Nicholas Holt is great too, and yeah, Guy Gardner was a lot of fun in his giant Green Lantern middle fingers flipping off tanks and stuff like that. And Metamorpho, which all the dirt sheets and everything are like Anthony Kerrigan's going to play one of the main villains in the movie, showing pictures of him as like and then how that character actually fits into it, I want more of Metamorpho. And also Anthony Kerrigan's amazing. But it's such a wonderful film. It has so much great energy to it. And I just had such a wonderful experience with it. One film off my watch list I want to throw out there is the last feature film of the late great Tony Scott, which is Unstoppable. This is a simple film about a runaway train, but it is as Tony Scott as it's going to get and has such a great cast. And I love Denzel Washington so much. And him and Chris Pine are great in this. Ethan Suplee is the real villain of the story. And just how that how that train gets off as a runaway train in the first place is ridiculous. And also the guy that owns like the railroad, also real villain of the story. Trains are not the villains, the human beings that mess with them are. But Unstoppable is just such a thrill ride. I enjoyed that experience so much from start to finish. And one that I randomly rewatched that I owned is Frost Nixon, which I think is a very interesting film to watch in today's
I
political
really
climate.
like Frost Nixon. It's a great
Same.
picture.
And I am such a big fan of David Tennant and Michael Sheen at this point in my life. Watching anything with either of them in it is such a joy. And Michael Sheen did such a great job with this. Frank Langella as Richard Nixon. And just the whole rest of the cast with like Kevin Bacon and Sam Rockwell and everybody, Oliver Platt. Oliver Platt can just be injected into anything. It just makes anything better. But this is such an interesting look at American politics and media. And I can only imagine watching an interview like this with another former president at some point in the future and just imagining what kind of shitstorm that would churn up, similar to this one. So and this is Ron Howard film, which I don't know why I completely forgot this was a Ron Howard movie. Honestly, sometimes I forget half the movies that Ron Howard directed, and I'm
I
watching
think
them
Ron
like,
Howard also does. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, did I direct that? Oh shit, yeah.
Because as great as Ron Howard is, he doesn't have like
style.
a distinct autorial style or vision. Like every one of his films is kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
It
And
kind
so
of
like you
meets the
can't
film
watch
where
something
it's
and be like,
at.
"Oh, that's so and so."
And honestly, it made me want to put more respect on Ron Howard's name because honestly, he's made some great movies over the
Yeah.
years. And this is one that obviously got a lot of attention awards wise because, like, why wouldn't it? Like, this just seems like the kind of film that the Academy would get a lot of focus on, but it's really worth a rewatch, especially in today's uh political climate in the United States. It makes it very interesting. But that ends my recommendations here. And just looking to next week, like I mentioned, I will be diving into Spirited Away. And I'll be joined on that episode. It'll be a very interesting episode because it'll be my wife, Jess, my brother, Ethan, and my wife's best friend, Paige. And it'll be an interesting discussion of Spirited Away for that one. There might be three of us squeezing into one little box on this in person, and then my brother in North Carolina. But I'm looking forward to that discussion. And honestly, the Studio Ghibli series is going to be over before you know it. And come the end of August, we'll be diving into 60 Weeks of Hitchcock. So look forward to
Let's
that.
go.
Yo, let's go. But you will certainly see or hear me collaborating with Luke, Heath, and Aaron in the near future on a variety of things. But thank you all so much for coming on and chatting movies with me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.